This is Thrivenomics, presented by Thrive Mortgage. Hey, folks, welcome back to another exciting episode of Thrivenomics. We appreciate you spending time with us today. And we've got a great interview lined up. A good friend of mine is joining me in studio today. And just by way of introduction, I'm, of course, your host, James Duncan, Director of Marketing for Thrive Mortgage. Joining me up in our Dallas studio is our illustrious podcast producer, Raul Espinoza.
How's it going?
What is up, Raul? Peace out to you.
Excited. We're going to talk about two of my favorite things, biking and old cars. So pretty excited right now.
Yeah, this is it's a match made in real estate heaven,
right?
As it were. But joining me in the studio is Patrick Easter. Patrick is the owner and broker of Easter Realtors here, based here in the Austin area. And Patrick and I have been friends for a number of years, and I guess you could say kind of colleagues. We work together on a lot of deals. He's one of the best realtors I've ever worked with, and he and his team do a great job serving their clients. Those of you who are regular listeners to Thrivenomics, you probably are aware of the fact that we don't just focus on real estate. We'll talk a little bit about it today, but there's another reason why I wanted to have Patrick on today's episode for this interview, just because he's got an amazing story and recently went on an amazing journey himself. And we'll get into that in a little bit more detail here in just a second. But Patrick, let's go ahead and get the real estate stuff out of the way.
All right.
So how long, I know Easter has been kind of a stalwart and as far as real estate brokerages go.
Yeah.
Exactly. So how long has the brand of Easter been around?
So the brand's been around since 1982.
Okay.
My dad launched the company in 82. However, my family's been in the real estate industry in Texas since 1949.
Nice.
So I come by it.
You can't get away from it.
Yeah.
It's ingrained. It's in your DNA.
There's a
now.
lot of us too. So, wait.
You're not saying you multiplied like rabbits, are you?
Somewhat. We call my dad Daddy Rabbit.
Daddy Rabbit. All right, that works.
He's the youngest of 8. So.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So I took the company over in late 2014.
Okay.
And I've been running it since. And
Gotcha.
I've loved it.
Yeah.
I've loved it. It was the best decision I've ever made. So.
If you live in or around the Austin area, then you probably recognize Patrick's logo without recognizing necessarily his face, but it's the green signs with the 2 bunny rabbits. Sold by typically with a sold by Easter.
Oh, it says sold mine real big with a big exclamation point. That was my dad. My dad was known as Mr. Sold Mine for years.
That's excellent branding right there.
Yeah,
and as a marketing director, I definitely appreciate that.
Yeah, I was going to ask if that was your real last name or if it was like a stage name.
Stage name.
That's real last name.
That's cool.
Real last name. Yeah, and and your daughter has taken over the duties of dressing up as the Easter Bunny.
Oh yeah,
because y'all used to.
We still do. We go to hospitals and like children's who have cancer or have a long-term chronic illness, and just go surprise them for Easter and just allow their parents to get a picture with the Easter Bunny and that kind of stuff. And they love it. There's some rooms we can't go in, but we can stand by the door and get a picture so they can show it to the kids, and so it's a lot of fun.
That's awesome.
It's the most rewarding experience.
I imagine it would be.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, you spend 3 hours doing that, you get real grateful real quick.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do. Definitely
awesome.
Moment to count your blessings.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the real estate side of things. What just a quick plug for Easter. What is it that differentiates your brokerage from any one of the big name brokerages that somebody might want to go with?
To make it simple in one word, relationship.
Yeah.
It's only about the relationship that we have with our clients.
Gotcha.
And that I've heard a lot of realtors say that, but my dad came up with the slogan in 1982 when he opened it, where customers become friends. And I would expand on that a little bit and say where friends also become customers, because I've got a great, very close friendship with every one of my previous customers. I can't think of one person that I couldn't call right now and just have a conversation with, just a nice conversation, and not ever even talk about real estate. Because at the end of the day, it's about a lifestyle choice on where you want to live, who you want your neighbors to be, what type of property, a condo versus a house, what your overall property strategy is. I mean, there's a lot that goes into it. And so what I try to do is meet with the customer and talk to them about their goals, what they want.
Right.
And inevitably when I, because of, being in the business as long as I have, when they're talking, homes and neighborhoods and condo communities or whatever are coming to mind.
Right.
While I'm talking to them.
Right.
Because they're mentioning that, they love cars. Okay. Well, I know of a neighborhood where there's, a garage right out, right by there that'll let you bring your car in and rent out a space, or whatever. It's about finding out what their lifestyle's like and then fitting their home with that lifestyle.
I think that's why you and I work. So one of the reasons why you and I work so well together is because, well, number one, at Thrive, we've got a very shared, definitely a lot in common regarding that philosophy, because we're exactly the same way. We know that a mortgage transaction is as a massive debt that they're taking on in one full go, and we are not able to structure the right loan program without getting to know those clients. So that's largely what we do. And what you said, I can definitely vouch for the fact that you are very relational in your dealings with your clients, because anybody that you put in my trust, the same thing happens with us. I mean, we become friends on Facebook. We'll have we'll have phone conversations where 90% of the time spent conversing is about anything other than the mortgage or the mortgage strategy or anything. It's just getting to know them and just having fun conversations. So, which reminds me, I need to call Avinash. He called me the other day. So, hey, Avinash.
Hey, Avinash.
Give you a little shout out there. But anyway, let's dig into, so there you go, listeners and viewers. Real estate portion is done. Now on to the interesting stuff. So you just recently completed a pretty impressive journey, and
it was
on a bike.
It was impressive not only to others but to me too.
Yeah,
meaning I didn't know for sure that I could do it until I did it.
There you go. That's sometimes that's what you got to do with adventure, is just jump in with both feet. So what is it about now? Cycling obviously is huge in Central Texas area. It's grown in a lot of areas, but specifically, you can't drive down the road at any time of day. Right. Well, maybe not in the middle of the night, but anytime when the sun's up, you can't drive down the road without seeing at least a handful of cyclists.
Especially on Ronald Reagan. Yeah.
Especially on Ronald Reagan.
Yeah.
So what is it about cycling that really piqued your interest at first?
So it was a simple prod from my wife.
Okay.
Because when we first met, I was on a bicycle every day. And, I was 185 pounds and fit and could ride all day and not get tired. And, and I don't mind sharing this, that I had a head injury in 2018 and it really changed my life. And in a good way. At the time, I didn't feel like it was a good way, but, after getting the correct treatment, I did. And I was kind of back to being myself again, but I was also disappointed because I was overweight and I didn't feel great. And my blood pressure was out of control, and I was taking blood pressure medication. And my wife said, why don't you just go get on your bike? So my father-in-law had given me a bicycle in 2012 from the Texas 4000 bike ride that they do every year for cancer research. So one of our family friends was the chairperson for that event. And we went to the auction, and they were auctioning off one of the bicycles, the model of bicycle that they used for that ride. So they ride from Austin, Texas to Alaska every year.
Wow.
And so he won at that auction, and he paid a little bit more for it than what the bike was really worth. But he didn't care because he wanted to make a donation anyway. So at the end of it, he gave it to me.
Nice.
And it hung in my garage for 7 years. And I finally got on it September of 2019. And a friend of mine, Jim Knuckles, came by the house and he said, "Hey, let's go for a ride." this is about 4 or 5 days after I got on it. I said, okay. And he pushed me to a 10-mile ride. And I thought, God, I can't believe I just did a 10-mile ride. You know? Because I was also 55 pounds heavier than I am right now.
Gotcha.
So then he pushed me to a 20-mile ride, and then a 25, and then a 30. And before I knew it, I was comfortable on the bike for over 45, 50 miles. Nice. And I was doing 70-mile rides every once in a while. And, you know, I was like, wow, this is a lot of fun, you know? So I had a goal to reach 3,000 miles within a year of October 1st of 2019. And I met that goal in May of 2020.
Nice.
And I was like, man, this is so much fun. Well, about that time, Sandy Gillis, Austin Title.
Hi, Sandy.
Hey, Sandy.
We're gonna have to tag a whole bunch of people.
Right?
When we post this.
So she moved to Kanab, Utah. And I had been thinking about doing a touring ride, and I've been studying it and trying to figure out what kind of ride I could go on, and whether or not I wanted to do a supported ride or whether or not I wanted to do just on my own. And I decided, you know what? No time like the present. And I put my bicycle on her moving truck, that same bike that my father-in-law gave me. And I have a new, nicer bike that I bought in January, but I love my new bike. I love the old bike too, but it was the old bike was better suited for this type of ride.
Okay.
So then months of planning came along, and then I was planning on going in July, which I was kind of very fortunate that I didn't go in July, but I got COVID in June, along with the rest of my family, and so I didn't have a choice. I had to make a decision to postpone my trip. So I postponed it until I left Kanab, Utah on September the 13th.
Okay.
And I reached Austin on October 7th, and there were 3 rest days. So it was 21 days of riding.
Right.
And truthfully, there were a few other little rest days in there because they were all downhill. so
kind of coasting.
I had planned that.
Pop it in neutral. And then
I knew that I could get from this town to this town and pedal very little.
Nice.
So that was kind of a rest day too. But you know, it was a life-changing experience for me. It really was. My brother told me when he first saw me, he met me on the last day at a location that I didn't even know he was coming. He just knew I was going to be on this road, and he pulls over and sets up chairs and everything. And we're sitting there, and he goes, "God, I just can't believe how much more calm you are." Because, you know, before I was kind of going over here and going, you know, and then I get home and my wife goes, "God, you're so calm." And then I went and took my mom out for lunch, and she goes, "You're so calm." And so
sensing a trend.
It's been a reoccurring theme. I'm like, well, I guess I'm calm.
There you go.
So it really was a life-changing experience. It was one of those things that was a bucket list thing. I will probably never go on an unsupported ride again because the weight of the stuff is a lot. The very first day I went from Kanab, Utah to Page, Utah.
Right.
And when I did, I was about halfway, and I went, God, this stuff weighs a lot.
Yeah.
I got to Page and I was tired. It was a 75-mile day with a lot of elevation.
Sure.
And I got to Page, and I went straight to the post office and mailed back 12 pounds worth of stuff.
Wow.
Like, don't need this. Don't need this. Don't need this.
That's quite the experience. I mean, just experience is one of the best teachers. So it's pretty funny how, you're carrying everything that you're going to need. You're carrying
food,
DOP kit,
water.
You're carrying food, water, change of clothes.
Yeah.
Extra inner tubes if you get a flat.
Yep.
I mean, that's a lot to plan on just a bike as your only mode of transportation.
Well, I got it down to 36.5 pounds.
Wow.
With full water bottles.
Impressive.
So Well, not bad. I was at 27 without the water bottles, but
Okay.
I had 5 liters of water on me.
Yeah.
So, because when you're out in the middle of nowhere,
You're
you
going through the desert, kind of need it.
You kind of need it.
Yeah.
It's pretty dry.
Right. A little bit. The reason why it's called desert.
I'm thinking of the Three Amigos when
Raul, please insert that clip when you produce the video.
Yeah.
Lip balm.
yeah.
Well, cool. So other than kind of calming you, do you feel like that's something that's kind of a permanent thing, or do you think that that's just the result of you just being out on your own and making this journey with a lot of time to think and kind of work through issues related to work, personal, stuff like that?
I think it's a permanent thing.
Yeah.
I think it's a different mindset.
Yeah.
You know how you get to a point where it's like, I need to rethink the way I'm thinking about this.
Right.
And, it's truly a different mindset for me. It's not as high pressure all the time. It's, and it's relationship based, like
Sure.
you and I, and my clients and my family and, my friends.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's something I really, am glad I did. There were some days that were pretty tough, but
I imagine.
yeah.
At what point, or what was going on externally that made you have thoughts, well, maybe this one's such a great idea? Did you ever have those moments?
Oh yeah. So the hardest day on my entire trip was actually a short day.
Mm-hmm.
It was from Snyder, Texas to Sweetwater, Texas. Not much
Gotcha.
elevation gain. I think I only gained 300 feet.
Right.
But I had a 22-mile-an-hour wind at my face the entire day.
So it was almost like being on a stationary bike.
Yeah. I averaged 8.3 miles an hour. And
goodness.
on the whole trip, I averaged around 12 miles an hour.
Sure.
So I was pushing the entire time. And I can remember thinking to myself, I'm going to have to call my wife and have her come get me. I just can't do it. Or I even looked over at a car lot at one point and thought, I'm just going to buy a car.
Buy a car, buy a bike rack.
What's your cheapest car you got here?
Exactly.
I'm going to go sell it when I get to Austin.
Exactly.
So
wow.
That was a very tough day. I ended up stopping at this little restaurant in Roscoe, which is right outside of Sweetwater.
Right.
And had a meal and just sat there. I had been pushing against the wind for 20 something miles, and it was tough. The other thing that is really scary when it's windy are the retirees and their RVs with a Jeep behind them, because their RVs are moving around a lot.
Yep.
And I got a flat that day, and I was over on the side of the road, and I look up and there's 2 lanes next to me. And the left lane is clear. So the guy could have moved over, but he crossed 3 feet from me in a 8,000 pound, or no, 25,000 pound vehicle.
Yeah.
With another vehicle behind him.
Right. In tow.
And I just went like this. What are you doing? Move over.
Situational awareness, folks. Let's go.
Yeah.
Right.
Check into it.
And
for some reason, drivers don't like bikers. And I don't know why. It's such a weird thing, because
it is weird. But you know what? 18-wheelers are awesome because they all move over.
Oh, yeah.
And I think they're trained to do so, probably for insurance purposes or whatever. Yeah. But they all move over. And and a lot of them will honk at you and wave. Like, hey, keep going, keep going.
Keep moving.
Yeah.
So, but that day was my hardest day. And that, but that taught me a lot about myself.
Sure.
Your body is so much more capable than your mind.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've read David Goggins' book, Can't Hurt Me.
No, I haven't. I've seen it.
If you get a chance, you should read it. Now, there is some fairly harsh language.
I understand.
He's a Navy SEAL.
Military guy. Yeah, it goes with territory.
But man, what a book that motivated me the entire time.
Awesome.
It was all about, you can't hurt me. Your mind is capable of shutting your body down, but your body's not capable of shutting your mind down. And so for me, it was getting past that mindset that I can't do this. Like there were many on that hardest ride. There were many times where I can't do this. I can't. And because, my bags are like parachutes back there.
Of course.
Right.
Yeah.
And so the wind's hitting those too,
Right.
And I mean, a big gust would come along. And I would hop off the bike, get some nutrients, get some water, and go.
Yeah.
So, that was a tough day. And then I had another day from Grants, New Mexico, all the way to Belen, New Mexico.
Okay.
Which is south of Albuquerque. And the reason I had to go so far, that was supposed to be a rest day. And so I was, thinking, well, you know what? I can just go to the Sky City Casino and Hotel, which is 26 miles away, and it's downhill most of the way. I can just run over there real quick, stay there. And then my next day is only 70 miles, but it's downhill like the whole way. And I knew that I'd have the wind at my back. And so I thought, okay, I'll go to the Sky City. So I get to Sky City and they're like, I'm sorry, sir, we're closed due to COVID. I'm like, oh, great.
Now what?
Yeah. So I go to the Route 66 Hotel and Casino. I'm sorry, sir, we're closed to anyone who's not a New Mexico resident.
Well, I mean, to be fair, the amount of time that you had spent driving across or riding across New Mexico, you might as well have been.
I was practically a resident at that point. And so I looked at my map, and the night before I had met this guy named Joe at a restaurant, and he offered to come get me because I knew there might be a possibility that he closed. And I had tried to call, but no one answered. So not a good point.
Right.
So anyway, but he offered to come get me, and I thought, well, I could call him, and he was going to take me right back to Grants, and then I could ride the next day the whole way. But then I looked at the wind conditions, and I looked at what my route looked like as far as downhill, and how much uphill and downhill. And there was a really nice ride from where I was to Belen, New Mexico, but it was 70 something miles away.
Sure.
So I get on my bike and I'm traveling down Route 66, having a great time. And I get 5 miles down this road, and there's a concrete barricade in front of me that's 10 feet tall. I'm not kidding.
Across the road?
Across Route 66. And I go, well, I just came 5 miles down this road. There, I've got to go 5 miles back. I got to go 10 miles out of my way. And it says closed, do not come in. They had closed the Indian reservation because of the COVID, of COVID.
They didn't want anybody going through.
They didn't want anyone in there because they had been decimated from it. Apparently in, Native American culture, they have tribal meetings. And of course, they get together often. And COVID spread like wildfire. And so they didn't want any outsiders in. And so they closed the road. So
all right.
I turn around, riding back. I actually got this all on video, and I didn't even realize it. I forgot to turn my GoPro because when I saw the wall, it changed my mindset.
Right.
And I'm riding back, and I look over, and about a quarter mile off this way, I can see I-40. I can see the road. I go a little bit more, and I see this dirt road, and it's where high school students would go on a Friday night to go drink beer.
Sure. Okay. Understood.
Okay. And
can't say I'm familiar with that road, but
yeah,
I get where you're going.
So there's beer cans everywhere.
Got it.
So, and it's going straight towards I-40. So I'm like, I'm going to try it. I'm just going to see what's over here instead of going 5 miles back. So I get up there, and I get very close to I-40, and there's a tunnel that goes under I-40. I'm like, man, I can go through that. So I get up in the tunnel, and I look, and I'm walking through the tunnel, and on the other end of the tunnel is a big rattlesnake. And he looks up at me, and he gives me a little shake, and he takes off into the field on the other side of I-40. So I'm like, if I can know where he is, I'm okay.
All right.
So I get to the other side of this tunnel, and there's a 5-foot wall on both sides, a concrete 5-foot wall. And then the front is just barbed wire. The whole thing's, you cannot go that way. And the only way to go up there is to climb this 5-foot concrete wall. So I used my bicycle. Now I used my bicycle as a ladder and stepped on the top bar, and then stepped up on top. And then I had to reach down and grab this 50-pound bicycle, or almost 60-pound bicycle, and pull it up like a big deadlift. And got up there, and then the slope is like the double black diamond level. I mean, it's like 14% grade, And so I'm using my bicycle as like a prop to help myself up, because I'd put it in the sand and hold on to it, step up one, put it in the sand, step up. And as soon as I take my second step, I hear that rattlesnake.
Oh,
my God.
He's tracking you now.
He is about 30 feet from me off to the right. And you can see me on the video. I'll see if I can give you a little clip of it.
All right.
You can see me looking over at and I'm like, you stay there.
I'm not here to mess with you.
And he wasn't coming towards me, but he was letting me know that he didn't want me in his area.
Of course.
Yeah.
And so I get up to the top, and then there's a 4-foot wall.
Another one?
It's a guardrail.
Oh, okay.
Luckily, I was able to slide my bike underneath the guardrail.
Oh, nice.
And then I got on my bike and started riding. And about 10 minutes later, while riding, I look back and there's a police officer behind me with his lights on.
Great.
So the rule in New Mexico is you can't be on I-40 if there's another alternative route. So,
and you shared with him the travails of what you had just gone through for the last hour and a half.
I was like, you know that ditch back there?
Yeah.
You came through that, you know?
Yeah.
So he was very nice. And he said, how much further do you have? And I was like, I'm trying to get to Highway 6 so I can go to Belen up here. It's only 5 miles. He's like, okay. It's like, I patrol this area. I'm going to keep an eye out for you. I want you to stay far over on the shoulder. And actually on I-40, I felt comfortable because it's a 16-foot shoulder.
Right.
And the trucks all move over for you. And I felt great.
Good.
So anyway, I rode into Belen, and that was a 90-mile day that I wasn't expecting, right?
All because of the switchbacks and the moving around.
And I didn't realize that it was going to be a 90. I thought it was going to be a 22 or 23-mile day.
Yeah.
And so I was pretty tired, but I got to the hotel, and it was the only hotel for whatever reason, the only hotel that had rooms. They must have had a COVID convention or something. I don't know, but it was a Super 8. And it was interesting to watch drug deals go down in the lobby. And
should have gotten that patrolman's card and said, "Hey, you want to be a hero?"
Right. And the entire place smelled like smoke.
Yeah.
And they weren't very friendly. And the front desk staff liked to use obscenities often. And so it was great fun.
Quite an adventure.
So the next day was, because of that 90-mile day, was supposed to be a rest day. But I wasn't staying in that hotel another night.
Wouldn't blame you.
Yeah. So I decided, you know what? I'm just going to go.
I'm going.
It's only 45 miles. How bad could it be?
Right.
Yeah, that was my second worst.
Just bang.
I had 45 miles.
Wow.
Of uphill the entire time. There was no downhill. Like I didn't coast. There was none. I had to pedal the entire time. It was actually, I hate wind more than I hate hills. But that day might be an exception.
Understandable.
I was pretty tired at the end of that day. So I did take a rest day the next day.
I can't blame you.
Yeah.
Well, I remember when I was, there was one time when I talked to you on the phone when you're in the midst of this journey, and you were telling me about how cresting the Continental Divide.
Oh.
Now, was that before this event that you've been talking about, or is this leading up to it?
No, this is before. So when you come right into New Mexico, that's as soon as you come from Arizona into New Mexico on I-40, that's where the Continental Divide is. It's only, I think, 16 or 17 miles outside of the border there. And that was a very, I told you earlier, my family says I'm calmer, and that was the day that made me that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it was one of those things. I was worried about going over the Continental Divide even before the trip.
Understandable.
And I think, 3 days or 4 days prior to that, I was in Flagstaff, and I climbed 3,800 feet in 45 miles, and it wasn't as tough as I thought it was going to be.
Okay.
And so I looked at I had a scouting report every day for my ride, so I knew exactly what my ride was going to look like. Apparently my scouting report from Belen to Mountain Air that I told you about earlier, that was all uphill, wasn't completely accurate because I wasn't prepared for that. But, so I knew that I only had 2,600 feet of climb, compared to 3,800 feet that I did before. And so I was feeling better about it. And then as I'm going up, it's a lot of up. And then I kind of get there, and I sent a text to my wife and said, check it out. I made it, and she knew I was worried about it. And after I got done, it was this freeing feeling. It was like, I did it. I did it. I got over the hardest part,
It's a major accomplishment.
Yeah. Yeah. And then got into Texas, and the Texas hill country is no joke.
No.
There's a lot of elevation gain.
There are a lot of myths. For those of you who are not from Texas, there is a very popular misconception that Texas looks exactly like what you see in the pictures, like Pale Rider, or not Pale Rider, but in like all the old spaghetti westerns. Everybody has that same vision of what Texas is like, just flat, dirt, dusty. There are parts, but most of the state is actually not like that at all.
Not at all.
Especially here in this, once you start getting into central Texas.
So my, one day I went from Santa Ana, Texas to San Saba, Texas. So my third to last day. And there's a road that someone designed as a torture chamber for bicycles. It's called Texas 45.
It's probably that guy driving that RV.
Yeah. It was nothing but up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up all day.
Yeah.
And it, I only had 1,700 feet of elevation gain, but the problem was it was like doing reps, like at a gym.
Or burpees.
Yeah.
Burpees on a bike.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
So I used my free miles, which were my downhills, to rest. And then all of a sudden I had this big hill in front of me, and at the end of that road, I get to this convenience store, and I go in and I buy a Gatorade and a water and some peanut butter crackers and all of this.
Sure.
And the lady goes, "You just rode a bike down that road?"
You're glutton for punishment, dude.
Yeah. So, but I completed the journey on October 7th, last Wednesday, and my family and friends were there. A lot of my family and friends were there at a social distancing party. And my wife had set up some barbecue and some Shiner Bock, and awesome. I was pretty happy.
Awesome. I imagine so.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool. I just remember the story you shared of after cresting the Continental Divide, going downhill, the wind was blowing so strong in your face that you couldn't coast, that you had to pedal in order to go downhill.
Yep. Downhill.
That's mind blowing to me.
I pedaled for another 40 something miles, and a lot of that was through kind of back roads and stuff. Because I was off of I-40.
Correct.
And which is Native American area, and I actually had this very, very nice Native American man come up to me and in the reservation and give me some pointers on what I was about to get to in this town. That there's a lot of dogs, and they call them res dogs, and there's a lot of dogs that are very protective of their property,
of course,
so don't get close to them,
right?
Because they will bite,
right?
And so all I had for protection was a stick, that one of those muscle sticks that you can roll on your muscles. So I put that in my bicycle, in my handlebar bag, and I would slide it across and kind of strap it down to where I could just grab it if I needed to.
Yank it out. Yeah.
And that was the scariest part of the trip, because there were a lot of dogs that did not like me being on a bicycle.
I imagine.
And most of the time, the owners would come out and go and tell them, "Get back here, quit."
Right.
But sometimes not so much.
Yeah.
So that was pretty scary. And there's a bicycling association called Adventure Bicycling. And they tell you when you go on a long tour ride, you need to have something to protect yourself from dogs, because it's that's really a big risk. But luckily, none of them wanted to
mess with you too bad.
Yeah, they didn't want to hurt me.
What was the funniest encounter that you had on your trip? I think you know what I'm thinking of.
What are you thinking of?
I'm thinking of your encounter at that restaurant in Post.
Oh. Yeah, that was funny. So Post, Texas is just south of Lubbock.
Correct.
And so I was riding from Lubbock to Littlefield, and Post is about halfway between them.
Yeah.
And I get there, and there's this place called George's Restaurant. Yep. It looks good. I'm hungry. I don't want to make another peanut butter and jelly sandwich, because that's what I had whenever there wasn't a restaurant. Every morning at breakfast, I would have the waitress bring me 2 pieces of white bread. Sometimes they would just order it as toast, untoasted, okay. And then some jelly packets, because I had a jar of peanut butter. I went through 2 jars of peanut butter in 3 weeks.
I don't doubt it.
And so I get to this restaurant. I'm like, oh, that looks great. So I sit down, and the waitress comes up to me and asks me, what I want for water. For a drink. And I'm like, water. I'm riding a bike.
Yeah.
And across the restaurant, I'm talking like 40 feet from me. This guy goes, hey, is that your bicycle out there? I said, yes, sir, it is. Man, that's awesome. Why do you have all your stuff on there? How far are you going? And at this point, now everybody in the restaurant is turning to talk
to hear this interaction.
And so
it was a lo-fi podcast right there in Georgia.
Yes. And so I said, yes, sir. I'm riding from Utah to Austin. And then all of a sudden, other people, Utah, like that. It's like, the New York.
New York City.
Where are you from? New York. Everyone turns. Right. Everyone goes, Utah. And I go, no, I'm from Austin. Right. I'm a Texan.
Right.
And they go,
oh, okay.
Oh, yeah, you're okay then. Yeah. And then why are you riding that far? And and then it started this rapid fire questioning that went on for a good 10 minutes. Like I couldn't even order my lunch. I was like,
do y'all mind if I eat first? We'll interview later.
We can talk later.
Right.
And so they were asking, well, what kind of stuff do you have on your bike? As far as tools and nutrients. And I mean, it got very detailed. Like, where do you stay at night? Do you need a place to stay tonight?
That is West Texas for you. It will eventually get to that point. Like, what can we do to help? That is West Texas. And you actually just about nailed the West Texas draw. With your impersonation of that guy.
Yeah. So, well, my cousin Gary talks like that a little bit.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
I got that down. So, that was a fun experience. And then I was going into Coleman, Texas before Santa Ana.
Right.
And I'm cruising down and I see this rest stop, like great place to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Nice picnic tables. I love the big concrete picnic tables because I could lay down on them.
Sure.
And they're cold.
Yes.
Right? And they're nice and cool.
Yeah.
And so that was a nice break. And so I see this, and there's a couple of people there when I get there, and they all leave. And then all of a sudden I see this white Chevy pickup pull up.
Okay.
And I go, and this guy's got suspenders and jeans on. He looks like a game warden practically. And he gets out and he walks up to me and goes, "Are you Patrick?" I'm going, the Eagles song, Out on the Border came to mind. When he goes, well, you in some trouble, boy. Yeah. We know where you've been. And I'm going, what did I do? What did I do?
Right.
Like, I'm thinking this is like the sheriff.
Yeah.
And he goes, oh no, I'm a friend of Lee's. Lee is my cousin here. And Lee had told him I was coming through, and he was a rancher in the area and wanted to just meet me. And we sat.
Well, how funny. How did he know you were there at that park? I guess he was just driving by and saw you.
So I have a Garmin Connect app that tells my live position.
Right.
And as long as I have connectivity on my phone, and Lee was tracking that.
Oh, no kidding.
And so he was telling him, I think he's at the rest stop. And
gotcha.
But it was quite funny, and he even offered if I wanted to come. Where are you staying tonight? Well, I'm going to stay in a hotel in Santa Ana. Where to get? He goes, well, I assume you got that booked, and I said, yeah. And he goes, well, I was going to offer you could stay with me. That
was nice.
Well, thank you, sir, but I'm good.
That's so funny. Yeah, I can't imagine being in a town that you don't normally just. I've been through Coleman a number of times, and usually it's stopping at a convenience store to get gas for the rest of the drive to Lubbock, and that's pretty much it. Yeah. And I mean, once you get outside city limits, there's nothing there. But that is so typical of just small town Texas. Yeah, and that's how people are.
It was fun. And then the nicest hotel I stayed in was in Lubbock, Texas.
No kidding.
A Hawthorne Suites.
There you go.
If you get a chance to stay at the Hawthorne Suites,
nice endorsement.
I paid $54.
Okay.
On Priceline or whatever.
Right.
And my wife had told me to stay there because my daughter and my wife had stayed there a couple of weeks prior.
Right.
And so I said, okay, well, yeah, I'll stay there. I get there. It's bigger than two of my first apartments. We're talking living room. I walked in and went, now I feel like a king. So I went down to the desk. I was like, did y'all make a mistake? Like, this is no, sir. None of the rooms that you booked were available. So we went ahead and put you in a suite.
Nice.
And I'm talking huge. I felt it was awesome. So, and very comfortable bed. I was very happy with that decision.
Almost made you want to not get up the next morning and go ride.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Nice.
Absolutely.
All right. So this is kind of as much as we've been talking about this is the small trip. You've got even bigger plans for next year, right?
Yep. I'm going cross country from La Push, Washington to Boston, Massachusetts next year.
That is going to be an amazing journey to follow.
Yeah. That's going to be with a group. And I've got a support vehicle.
Good.
And even have a bike mechanic on duty. That's nice. So I don't have to work on my own bike if I don't want.
Nice.
And then I'm going to be, they set up your tent. They put an air mattress and air it up in your tent, and they put your bag in your tent.
Oh, look at that.
And they have showers every night. And it's up north, so it's not hot.
That'd be cool.
Yeah. So actually, a part of the ride goes through Canada.
All right.
So got to renew my passport.
There you go. Get that done.
But it's a fantastic ride. I've heard it's through Adventure Bicycling Association. Okay. Well, it's one of their vendors.
Sure.
And I've heard great things about it. And I won't have all my stuff on my bike.
No kidding.
Which is really nice.
Yeah. Almost like having a Sherpa and going up Everest.
Right. That's right. Yeah.
Somebody to carry your backpack.
Yeah.
Well, that's very cool. So when does that, when will that trip start?
I think it's July 22nd.
Okay.
If they haven't changed the dates, they had to change some dates around because of COVID this year.
Sure.
Maybe next year too. I don't know, but
maybe.
Yeah, that's my other bucket list item.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to do it before I'm 50. I'm 47.
Mm-hmm.
So, if it ends up being the following year, I'm okay with that too.
Mm-hmm.
Due to COVID,
Mm-hmm.
But if I can go next year, I'm going to try.
And to go from Washington over to Boston, I think you said that would take you about 6 months.
No. It's a 2 month.
2 months.
Yeah,
2 months. Okay.
60
Sorry.
days.
All right.
Yeah. So not a tough ride really.
Okay.
I mean, of course, over the Continental Divide up north,
right,
it's going to be a little tough, but
at least you get that out of the way early.
Right. Well, and they break it up into 2 days.
Okay.
So there's apparently a campsite about halfway up,
mm-hmm.
And then there's another. Once you get over the top, you just coast down to the next one. So.
Provided you don't have a headwind of 60 miles an hour.
Right. That's right. So, but yeah, I'm looking forward to that trip.
Very cool. Well, is there anything specific other than just riding? Was there anything specific that you did to prepare for this event or this last journey that you just got finished with, and what you're going to be doing next year? Is it any kind of additional training that you're going to need to go through?
A little bit more hill training. Okay. And there's some good routes in Central Texas.
Yeah.
Actually, if you go to the Adventure Bicycling Association site, they have routes that you can buy and plug into your Garmin and go. There's a Texas Hill Country route that, is over 30,000 feet of elevation gain in 4 days or 5 days. Wow. So they've got it mapped out pretty well.
Nice.
And so I'm going to be doing some of those types of rides to get used to the elevation climbing.
Mm-hmm.
But to be honest, I got on my bike last week and it was like pushing a feather compared to what I was riding.
Well, sure.
On my
no extra gear.
Yeah. And it's funny, you have 2 chain rings in the front of your bicycle,
right?
The lower one for easier and the bigger one for when you're going downhill.
Uh-huh.
I think I was probably in the big chain ring 2 to 3% of the time on my entire trip.
Wow.
Because there was number one, I'm pushing weight.
Mm-hmm.
And number 2, I didn't need to go that fast.
Mm-hmm.
And that was another thing. Calming yourself down and slowing down. Maybe that's the calmness.
Maybe.
Is key. You can't be in a rush. You're on a bicycle. It's
only going to go so fast.
It's kind of implied that you're going to go slow.
Yes.
And so I made that decision to just slow down because I could have pedaled harder and I could have managed 2 or 3 miles an hour more than what I was really doing in some parts. But did that really help me? Right? Because if I got burned out at mile 20 and I've got 25, 30 miles to go,
right?
My average day was 60.6 miles. So, and that included some of those big days. So I had some good small days too. But, when you start riding a bicycle like that, day in and day out, you learn real quick to not wear yourself out. And I went through so much food.
I would imagine you got to keep the calorie count up as much as you're burning.
Yeah. and I still lost 7 pounds.
Wow.
So on the trip, so, and gained muscle mass. So, it was, every day I was probably taking in 3,500 to 4,000 calories because I was so hungry.
Right.
I would eat early in the morning, at, eggs and, biscuits and as much as I could eat. And then by 10:30, 11 o'clock on my bike, I was starving and I'd have to pull over and get myself a goo or something. And then, they say on a bicycle, you're supposed to add nutrients every hour. Just a couple of 100 calories will really help. And so I would try to live by that. I'd normally go to about an hour and 20 minutes and add some nutrients, but cause I just had a big breakfast. But then by noon, it was like, okay, I got to pull over and eat because I've hit that wall. My body's going, I need nutrients. And since I've gotten back, I told my wife, I'm so hungry. Like my body hadn't slowed down yet as far as food goes. And so I'm like, well, am I eating too much? Because I'm not exercising as much, but I don't really care because I'm so hungry.
Yeah, the metabolism doesn't exactly track with when you're on a bike and when you're not.
Exactly.
Well, that's amazing. And so in all of this, the prep work that you did and the actual execution of the trip that you made, we talked about how you came back and everybody outside you is noticing just that calmness that overtook you. Do you think that that's the biggest takeaway that you had from this, or do you think it extends beyond
so
that?
I told my brother asked me kind of the same question.
Yeah.
What was the biggest takeaway? The biggest takeaway for me is anything's possible if you just chunk it down into smaller pieces.
That's a really good way to put it.
We didn't get to the moon in one day.
Of course.
We're certainly not going to get to Mars in one day. And so it's, any goal, whatever goal, business, personal, financial, whatever, is achievable if you have a plan and you follow that plan. Right. My plan when I left Kanab, Utah, was to be back in Austin after 21 days of riding. I told myself I could give myself 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 days of rest as needed, but 21 days of riding. And so, there was one day I went from Flagstaff, Arizona to Holbrook, Arizona, and I went through Winslow and stood on the corner.
By a red truck?
Yep.
Flatbed Ford?
Yep, flatbed Ford. And then drove
a bunch of Eagles references. Maybe we should tag Don Henley when we post this.
Right. Well, my brother is good friends with Joe Walsh, and so
perfect.
There we go.
We'll get him too.
Yeah. So we I went ahead and went through to Holbrook. Okay. So now I just gained a day. Like I got there and went, wow, I'm a day ahead. So now I can have another rest day.
Nice.
So and so I kind of just planned it that way. Like when can I have my good rest days? So
it's interesting that's one of your observations is that anything's possible if you just plan it out. Now, even though you planned everything out ahead of time, that didn't mean that everything went 100% according to plan. There were still those days when you had to adjust and in the case of the rattlesnake in the tunnel, improvise. Yeah. And you had to make adjustments along the way. So that's really an interesting observation that you would make that there is no such thing as a perfect plan.
Yeah.
But executing the plan and making those adjustments and having that flexibility. I mean, you're absolutely right. That applies to any goals that we set, whether it's business, personal, financial, what have you. So that's what Thrivenomics is all about. So awesome segue. Great job.
Nice.
But
I like the way you did that.
Well, yeah, of course. Bring it full circle. So I know that there's multiple things that you're passionate about, not just cycling or real estate, but also cars. I think we're going to have you on because this was a lot of great conversation and great recounting of that story. And I'm glad we'll definitely have you back on. And because I know Raul has a passion for automobiles as well. And
let me at least
there's my third child right there.
Yeah,
exactly.
let me at least put up on the screen too, though, your car, so people know what we're talking about. It's pretty sweet.
I mean, you do a great job of kind of chronicling the things you're passionate about, and you're a really good follow on social media because of that. So let's let's talk about ways that people can connect with you and find you and follow these kind of journeys. Cause
Sure.
I know you're on Facebook.
Yep. Patrick H. Easter.
Patrick. Yeah.
I have to put the H in there because there's another Patrick Easter in Austin with an A.
Not near as cool as you. Yeah. I'm sure.
I've met him. He's funny, weird story I'll throw in here.
Okay.
My wife goes to work at a company recently. Well, it was a couple of years ago, and walks in, and her new boss's name is Sharon Easter, which I have a cousin named Sharon Easter, not the same person.
Right.
And she's married to Patrick Easter.
You're kidding. The other Patrick Easter that's in Austin.
Oh
I didn't know that there were so many people with the last name Easter in the world.
So
until I met you.
Right. The company says, well, is there some nepotism going on, here? And my wife's like, oh, no, we're not related, but we're both married to Patrick. Wait, what?
Yeah. Just seeing if you're paying attention.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
So anyway, but Patrick H. Easter, and you will see Laverne front and center, and then there's another picture of me. My profile picture is me in front of my bicycle with all my stuff packed on there.
That's cool. So, and I liked the app that you used. What's it called? Strava. Strava. That was great. That was the website that you used to actually track your progress, and then you post it on Facebook.
Yeah, and then I have a blogger post too. But if you friend me on Facebook, you can see the blogger post.
Awesome.
So,
fantastic.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I really am so glad I did it, and it has certainly changed me.
Well, I could when you walked into the office this morning, you just looked trim and fit, and you just had a big smile on your face and stuff. So yeah, so I'm definitely seeing the same things that other folks, your family and other friends are picking up on you. But anyway, congratulations on completing something that probably very few people would even think of endeavoring to do, much less actually doing it.
Well, thank you.
And excited to kind of watch your progress on the trip you make next year. Hopefully it is able to happen next year.
I hope so. Yeah. And follow me on social media, and I'll keep you posted.
All right. And if somebody's got real estate needs and they want to connect with you about either listing their home or finding their next new one,
easterneaster.com.
There you go.
Or just call me 512-633-9500.
Yep. Or you reach out to me and I'll put you in touch with him as well.
Yeah.
And we'll get you pre-qualified before you even have a chance to talk to him.
Which is important.
Very.
So I'm going to add one thing for Thrive. I want people to know what a awesome company it is. And James being a loan officer sets my mind at ease, because I know that he loves to take care of his clients the same way that I do. And like you alluded to earlier. And so, you're in good hands at Thrive Mortgage with James. For sure.
Appreciate you saying that. Yeah. And here's $20.
Oh, okay. Thanks.
So, just kidding. Just kidding. CFPB. I did not. No money changed hands right there. I'd make that disclaimer. Anyway, well, Patrick, thank you so much for taking time out of your day. I know that you're super busy, like we all are, especially after having gone on a 21-day bike trek. A lot for you to catch up on, but you got a great team that was supporting you while you were gone, and both professionally and personally.
Thank you, Dodie Meyer.
There you go. So anyway, pleasure chatting with you. We're going to have you on. We'll probably have you on in season 2 and talk about Laverne. And I would imagine that your other new project, the 1970 Camaro that you're working on rebuilding right now,
that one will be coming along.
That will be coming along in progress. We'll have some updated photos on that. And you also, just last little plug, you also got on the waiting list for the new Bronco, didn't you?
I did.
Yeah, I saw that.
It's going to be red with a white top to match Laverne.
Oh, 2 or 4 door. She's going to be jealous.
She's going to be towed by, when I go to car shows and stuff. Yeah.
You did a 2 or 4 door?
I did the 4.
Okay.
With the 2.7 liter EcoBoost. I've got the 3.5 liter EcoBoost in my car. Yeah. And I love it in my Expedition. And so I can imagine, the Bronco is going to be lighter. I think it'll be fine and it'll tow great. Yeah. So nice. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be, awesome. It's kind of another bucket list thing.
I love my 4Runner, but man, when those photos come out, it made me think.
Oh yeah.
So
yeah, Ford's going to kill it.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It was a good job. Well, Raul, any final questions for Patrick from you?
No final, no questions, but no, it was a great conversation. Learned a lot. And that was really cool. I mean, that sounds really awesome, that adventure. I was going through some of your blog, and it's very, very inspiring. So I definitely recommend, everyone going to the blog. I'll link it with in the podcast also. Yeah. So everyone go through it. It's a good read.
Put it in the show notes.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Raul.
Give some follows. Awesome. Well, Patrick, thanks so much for being here. Appreciate it. Glad you're back in one piece.
Yeah, me too.
But anyway, thank you for tuning in, and go check out Patrick on social, and like we said, if you have any real estate needs, go to easterneaster.com, go look them up and check out what they can do for you, because they're great at what they do, and a lot of fun to work with too. You'll become Patrick's best friend. His next new best friend.
Yep.
But anyway, thank you for taking the time out of your day to listen in, and we appreciate you, Raul. Thanks for taking care of your duties up there up in the Dallas studio, and always great hanging out with you on this show. But anyway, y'all have a great rest of your day, and we will see you on the next episode. Bye. Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. The title sponsor for Thrivenomics is Thrive Mortgage. Licensed in multiple states across the U.S., Thrive Mortgage employs the best professionals, equipped with leading technology and the most efficient process to deliver a legendary lending experience. For more information about how we can serve you, or to find a local Thrive Mortgage professional in your area, please visit us at thrivemortgage.com. You can also contact us directly via email at thrivenomics@thrivemortgage.com. Thrive Mortgage is an equal housing lender, NMLS ID 268552.